Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag-and-drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running.
It's hard to believe that we've been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
So many great conversations over the years about so many great movies. All that said, producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes.
Becoming a Next Reel member gives you access to all sorts of additional and exclusive content. Plus, you're helping us keep the lights on. Just head to thenextreel.com/membership, where you can learn more about becoming a member, which costs a measly $5 a month, practically the same as one fancy coffee drink. And you get so much more.
Every month, we record a bonus episode exclusively for members. Those episodes cover movies from whatever series we're covering at the moment, or add to previous series.
Some movies we've covered that only members get to hear us discuss include The Blues Brothers,
The Russia House,
Naked Lunch,
Independence Day,
The Hot Rock,
and Relic, the better one. Plus, members get to vote on what we're going to discuss for those episodes.
We also record additional pre- and post-show content in regular episodes that only members get to hear.
Like conversations about similarly themed movies.
And answering listener questions from our live member chat.
Speaking of our live member chat, we record almost all of our episodes in Discord, where members can chat right along with us live.
Members get access to other members-only channels in our Discord community as well. On top of all that, members get all episodes a full week earlier than everyone else in a private Next Reel feed just for them that includes all the shows in the Next Reel family. The Next Reel, the Film Board,
movies we like, Sitting in the Dark, and more new projects on the way.
To top it all off, members don't have to listen to ads. We've already eliminated those annoying, dynamically inserted ads that, let's face it, we all hated.
We are listening to you.
We love podcasting for a living, and those ads help to pay the bills. Now, we're counting on you, dear listener.
We promise. We aren't going back to those terrible, dynamically inserted ads that don't relate to us at all. All we ask is that you consider supporting the Next Reel family of podcasts with a membership.
Again, it's $5 per month or $55 per year. Just head to thenextreel.com/membership.
thenextreel.com/membership. Get your access to early, ad-free episodes with bonus content, member bonus episodes, and access to member channels and live streams in Discord by signing up today.
Welcome to the Next Reel's Movies We Like, part of the True Story FM Entertainment Network. I'm Andy Nelson, and that over there is Pete Wright.
I'm Pete Wright.
On today's episode, we have invited filmmaker Uwe Boll to talk about a story about oil, blood, and milkshakes. It's There Will Be Blood, a movie that he likes.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've traveled over half our state to be here tonight. I couldn't get away sooner because my new well was coming in at Coyote Hills and I had to see about it. Ladies and gentlemen, if I say I'm an oil man, you will agree. I'm a family man. I run a family business. This is my son and my partner, H.W. Plainview.
You boys are a regular family business.
Now, you have a great chance here.
My son is a healer and a vessel for the Holy Spirit. He has a church.
You will be cast up and thrust back to perdition!
I'm fixed like no other company in this field. I have a string of tools ready to put to work. That's why I can guarantee to start drilling and to put up the cash to back my word. I assure you, ladies and gentlemen, no matter what the others promise to do, when it comes to the showdown, they won't be there.
There's a whole ocean of oil under our feet. No one can get at it except for me.
We'll offer $150,000 for full title.
When do we get our money, Daniel?
I look at people and I see nothing worth liking.
Don't bully me, Daniel, please!
I see the worst in people.
We have a sinner with us. Get out of here, devil!
I have a competition in me. I want no one else to succeed. I can't keep doing this on my own. With these, people.
Welcome to the show, Uwe.
Hello.
I cannot believe I'm staring at your face right now. I'm giddy with excitement here. This is fantastic.
Good. Perfect.
We are thrilled to have you here. We're thrilled to be talking with you, and thrilled particularly about this movie that you picked, which is a fantastic film to have a conversation about for sure. Before we start talking about There Will Be Blood, though, let's talk a little bit about you and your filmmaking career. I know it's you've had, I think it's fair to say, ups and downs and some criticisms and everything. But I think that, I don't know, having looked at some of the films that you've made, I think that there's a lot more to what you're wanting to say and trying to say with some of your films than people always give you credit for.
People overlooked that I did 35 films in my career.
Yeah.
And there was basically a phase of video game-based films like House of the Dead and then Alone in the Dark and so on. And that, in a way, tainted the other films. You know, it was this kind of like nobody discussed Darfur or South on Wall Street and whatever. And but over time, people watched that films. I recognized more and more that people like changing a little the opinion about me after a while. And films like Rampage and Postal, they went a little like into a cult movie situation over the years because they had a good word of mouth, you know, and people said, no, you have to watch that film. That is actually really good. And I think that so that helps in a way now the situation. But it was not easy. But it was funny when last week was, I think, the Hollywood Reporter, like, video games are the new comic books.
Yeah, I wondered if you knew that. Didn't you know Mario Brothers invented that, man? I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Out of the blue, video games are.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm shocked. I want to ask you about this, about cult film status, because looking at your filmography, I mean, as you say, 35 films, but of those films, you have strong audiences around many of them, people who feel very strongly about these movies and we'll call them cult movies. How does that make you feel as a filmmaker that you have these movies that move out of sort of popular fandom and into cult status? Does that change the way you look at the films that you've made?
No, I mean, the films, they turned into, let's say, not some cult movies, but got some credits later, were also the films I liked more, you know. But it was, I came out of the film Heart of America about school violence into House of the Dead. And that was like a total jump. But when you make a film like Heart of America, and had Elizabeth Moss in it, for example, who turned into a big star later, and you make no money, so it was a disaster, financial disaster. And then you do House of the Dead, and everybody hates you, but at the same time they sell like 5 million DVDs. That is a different situation there. And that was one of the reasons I started making more films with video games, because I'm not like an art house filmmaker who gets subsidies and whatsoever. So I had to see for what is money in the market, like what can I get financed. And so I don't want to also miss that films, because these films also made it possible that I could do Rampage later and so on, so I had like worldwide sales. People were buying my films, and then you can sell them also something smaller. You can say, look, but it's an Uwe Boll film, even if no big stars are in it. And that of course helped my career. I think what the thing what I was disappointed on in a way is that the normal newspaper movie critics, I had the feeling they never watched my films. I think they kind of wrote the same review whatever film I did. And when I won that Raspberry, I won it for Postal, what I think is a total joke. Because if they would actually watch Postal, they would maybe saw that is one of the first of all, I think one of my best films, but also it has an unbelievable satire background. What now 15 years later is not really aged. I think Postal you can watch today, and everybody would say that is the most politically incorrect thing I saw in the last 10 years, if you just air it today. And I think that is needed. Actually, films like Postal would be needed now, too. I think if I would try to do Postal now, all that actors would not play in it.
Nobody would say anything. Nobody would say yes.
Say, "Oh, you cannot do this. You will get canceled for the rest of your life."
I actually wonder, Uwe, if you would get the actors that were in it. Would you get Foley? Would you get Vern Troyer? Would you get those? Could you get those people to be in that movie today?
No, I don't think so. I think like J.K. Simmons or whatever, they would all tell him, "You cannot do this."
Yeah.
Like stuff like this. They were, but at that time, they loved it. They loved to be in that film, and they went all out. Like they totally didn't care about any consequences. So it was kind of a more like a freedom what people had and what artists could do. And when you listen to the Uwe Boll Raw Talk, like in the podcast, I'm not willing to obey or something, right? So it's I think the freedom of speech, also the freedom of art, and especially satire, has to be allowed, and it has to be insulting for some people. Otherwise, it's not funny. I mean, if you want to make it right to everybody, you're not funny at all. So it's basically when you see the genres now, what we have, where is another Naked Gun? Where is another Something's Wrong About Mary, whatever? All that comedies, Hangover, I think would never get done again. So, and I think it's horrible that comedy now is the subject or the genre what is hit the hardest with this political landscape we're living in now for the last few years.
Well, and I think that's an interesting point, and using Postal as a jumping point, because Postal is, I mean, it's a very funny film, and it's very dark in kind of the satire that it's playing. But I think you look at something like that, which also, I mean, came in line with video game adaptations that you were doing. But then you look at what you did in Rampage, which is a pretty dark movie following, the shooter as he's kind of going through town and just killing people. But then you have a scene where he walks into the bingo palace, and he's just looking around at everybody and is like, these people clearly don't need my help, and walks out. I mean, it's just like, it was so dark, but I was laughing out loud at something like that. And I'm like, I shouldn't be laughing at this. This is horrible. But wow, I mean, there's something to be said when you inject that kind of humor into a moment like that and in a film like that. So I think you're right. It's challenging people, and I think that's sometimes people just don't like to be challenged.
Well, and that's what I mean. Comedy comes from discomfort, right? If we aren't able to poke at our own discomfort, then if we exacerbate discomfort from the equation, there's nothing left to be funny.
Yes.
We have to be able to seek out discomfort to be able to laugh.
Yeah, and to be surprised for yourself, right? If you can guess every joke what's coming, it's not funny. I mean, you start bursting, start laughing about things when you have the feeling, wow, that guy goes for it or whatever, right? So I was, when I shot a film in New York recently, right? First Shift, like it as so in a way a little like my comeback film, a police film. So I went in a comedy club in New York City and listened to the stand-ups. And I have to say, shocked how political correct they tried to make the show, right? How they try to basically not to offend everybody. And I was bored shitless. I was sitting there like, what is this? Like people making jokes about what juice you drink. And it's just like weak, it was, for me, it was weak. And I want to go like getting challenged if I sit in a comedy club. And I remember in old days, where I was more in LA, I went to the comedy stores there a lot. And they were like full on insulting everybody. And also the audience. Like, what you doing here, you fat fuck, whatever, like stuff like this. But that is why I want to be in a live audience in a comedy store. It's this kind of, it's a different thing as a film, but both need to get you off your comfort zone. And then I feel good. But now we're living in a world where everybody's offended when you say, I don't like your pullover. The whole world breaks apart and you cannot do this. I'm doing suicide now. So that is ridiculous. I mean, look behind you, the Dr. Strangelove poster. I mean, one of the biggest satires, the most famous satires in the history. And I think that it's very important to not like omit that genre, and that is right now happening.
Yeah,
It gives a very bad feeling about it. But. It is what it is, we have to
live with
it. And I feel that sometimes the media is blowing things up totally out of proportions and helping them. They help the Twitter mob to succeed, basically, right? In canceling a person or whatever, because then they report about it in the real newspapers and stuff. And then people getting like losing everything they have.
It's interesting, and I think you have found a way to kind of keep pushing and doing things with your films that certainly is intriguing, and it makes for very interesting watches. So, but I want to use this point. I want to shift over to start talking about Paul Thomas Anderson's 2007 film, There Will Be Blood, the film that you picked, something that you are a big fan of. And I want to start our conversation just thinking about some of the stories that you tell and just what we've been talking about, kind of going to these dark places. And I think this film has such an interesting story that we're following this really dark, really unlikable, very greedy protagonist. And I think that let's start with Daniel Plainview and just kind of talk a little bit about, having a complex protagonist like this.
Yeah, I mean, for me, when I watched the film, it was like I had no clue first what it is, and then Clark, the producer I worked with on a lot of films, he was in New York at a screening with Daniel Day-Lewis and Paul Thomas Anderson, and where they did like question and answers when it went a preview or whatever, and he said, "No, you have to watch that film over." And then when it came, I watched it right away, and I felt like this is a film why I want to make movies. Like that was this kind of. But I don't have a lot, there's a reason also like when they asked me now what film I want to talk about, I could say Jaws, whatever. Like there are some films, The Apocalypse Now, there are like in my past where I feel like these are this kind of movies I love, and and they made their stamp on me basically. But when I watched that film for years, I didn't got that impact what I got on this film. It was really like the consequence with Daniel Day-Lewis character, that he didn't even try to be like a likable person. I mean, the ultimate betrayal on that kid.
Yeah.
To use a handicapped kid to gain power and money, that was, of course, the most ridiculous twist also, and how he then offloads him into the garbage, basically, that was, but that made me feel like what I felt with, for example, The Shining, or where you get so surprised and blown away, where you feel like, fuck.
Yeah.
So this was the feeling what I didn't have for a long time when I watched that film. And it was or Citizen Kane too, what is another very big anti-hero story.
Sure.
But in a way, in Citizen Kane, I feel that he was more, in a way, more likable because he was more a victim, as Daniel Day-Lewis was in There Will Be Blood.
Right, you see his fall. Like, we see where he starts. He's likable at the beginning, but then we see over time that Kane kind of slowly goes downhill. Whereas, Daniel Plainview, you pretty much get a sense from the start that this guy is here for money and doesn't like people.
Yes.
You know what? Controversial opinion. Okay.
Yeah.
I like Daniel Plainview. A lot. And I think one of the bits of brilliance about this movie is Daniel Plainview, as unlikable as he is, to me, at least likable enough that he is misunderstood in a world that is brand new, right? Like, he is doing stuff that nobody understands how to do right now, except for the giant companies. And he's working incredibly hard at it, right? This is a story about what price success. And there is something about the way this movie starts with him breaking his leg, falling down in a well, that demonstrates how hot and hard and incredibly painful his success ends up being. And I don't like a lot of the stuff that he does, but there's something about Daniel Plainview's work ethic that is kind of appealing to me. I don't hate him.
No, you're right that he's not like trying to steal it in a way. Even if he steals,
even if he's trying to steal, he's drinking a lot of milk.
But it's kind of like, yes, he's a hard-working guy, and he puts everything into his success, and this kind of like entrepreneur at the times where you could just claim your stake in something. You just went out there in the prairie, and that is now my land. A little what we have now in that TV show Yellowstone, in a way, right? In a totally different kind of surrounding, but similar. The old days where the land you could just conquer and declare it yourself, and that is my land now. And if you had a gun, people had to take it away from you with violence if they wanted it. So that 100%, I agree that he works hard, but in the very end, I think it's there's I don't know even who said it, Schopenhauer, some big philosopher. He said, like, it's basically greed what drives history. And I have to say, like, getting older myself and reading more and stuff like this, that is the truth. When you watch the Ukraine war or Taiwan coming up, all that shit, it's all greed. It's like, and it's individual people or dictators or whatsoever that moved the history more as anything else, more as love, definitely, and compassion or empathy. That are all things we all want, that people are like this. But when you go through history, it was always basically similar to There Will Be Blood.
Yes.
And people got left out and left, like, dumped into no man's land, and they could die and starve to death. And at times also people starved to death still, so they didn't. You saw that in the restaurant scenes in There Will Be Blood, right? So where, like, a steak was a big thing to eat a steak and stuff like this. And that was also, I think, just correctly told, that you had the feeling that was the surrounding people actually lived at that time. And you were basically a workhorse. You worked till you're dead. And that was it, But of course, the film would be not so good if Paul Dano would be not in it.
Absolutely.
And that was also, I think, I think it was the first time I saw that actor. It was like the church scene. It was just unbelievable, and when he had to.
Which one? The first one when he's helping the lady, or the later one when he's brings Daniel?
The later one. The first one was great too, but I mean, when he basically wants to overpower Daniel Day-Lewis in a way and baptize
on his own turf.
Yeah, and like when you see that scene later, he's dead. Like he will
pretty much.
He will come back to him, and for this he will die. That is saying what and then the scene with his brother, killing his fake brother or whatsoever. But there, I'm right with Pete there. The situation with the brother was almost that the guy deserved to die.
That's kind of the setup, right?
It's a really interesting way that plays, because, I mean, he essentially is this criminal. I mean, he admits that he had been in prison and all of this sort of stuff. But he, as we learn, he faked this whole thing. Your brother died of tuberculosis. I didn't kill him, but he really did die. But yes, I did steal his story. And this is this person who has infiltrated his way into Daniel's life to kind of, become a partner, or I don't know what his intentions were to like really become a partner. Or Daniel really kind of welcomes him in as family blood and everything. But it's definitely a dark turn that we see with Daniel take. But there is an interesting element. You can read it where there's some justification for being upset at the way that this person did that.
But again, the lens of time, right? At this time, as you say, that there is the problems are solved with violence. I think all of these character sort of avatars can be applied to, and this is one of the bits of genius about Paul Thomas Anderson, is just being able to write a script that you can take these characters like Daniel Plainview and Henry, beautifully cast played by Kevin O'Connor, who kind of looks like Daniel Day-Lewis a little bit. Works for the family thing. And actually, like, how many Daniel Plainviews do you feel like we have on Wall Street right now? Like, those stories are played out with just different tools every day. And that is, that's one of the things that I think is really just so perfect about their relationship. That betrayal ends in violence. His adopted son lights their cabin on fire. What is that cabin on fire a metaphor for today? It plays out all the time, those sorts of betrayal. We're watching the same thing on Succession every week, right? Like, it's Succession is There Will Be Blood right now.
Yeah, it's funnier as There Will Be Blood.
Right.
Right.
In a way, so, and more, in a way, more enjoyable, more commercial. But I think also when Paul Dano is coming in the end there, and it's all about the money, right? Even in the church, and he acts the whole time. He's like serving God or whatever. It's all bullshit. It's like in the very end, it's all about the money.
Right.
And then the ultimate victory that he doesn't need the land anymore because he sucked the oil out of the underground, basically, And it was just how he kills him on the bowling alley. No, I was really like, I didn't have a lot of films, where you get a like goosebumps in a way.
Yeah.
So, and I got that in that film various times where you get really surprised about also how it turns, and where you didn't saw it coming this way. And that is not a lot of times, I think, happening when you watch films. Right. So in a positive way, I just watched here everything, whatever, all at once. And I have to say, for me, a guy wrote, it's like 130 minutes TikTok video. And that was actually my feeling too. I never got emotionally connected to that film. It's interesting done. It's like it has a lot of crazy scenes and a lot of, let's say, intercutting with animation and all kinds of going to different dimensions. But it's not a film what got me emotional. And There Will Be Blood is the opposite. It got me completely sucked in, and where you feel like, wow, I liked at that point Paul Thomas Anderson. That was before he made a few bad films, basically, so The Master and so on. So that he did some films after, up to now, the Licorice Pizza, what I really liked. I mean, it's not like there will be blood quality, but it's a good film. I enjoyed to watch it. It was a feel good movie, and it was had like crazy with Bradley Cooper was a great side story.
He's so great, yeah.
So I really liked it. I was happy that I liked it again because Paul Thomas Anderson was Boogie Nights, he was one of my favorite directors. He came out of nowhere in a way, and I had a feeling about him how I had it with Quentin Tarantino after I watched like Reservoir Dogs, and I felt like, wow, that guy is great. Like I love that film and Pulp Fiction, and that is the thing. It's like, and I think There Will Be Blood was the best film he did. And it had nothing to do with his personal life. What is interesting, because he said he likes films about his personal living in the valley and growing up like this. And that was the film that was maybe the farthest away from Paul Thomas Anderson's personal life, but it's ultimately his masterpiece.
And really the first time he's adapted anything too, adapted, loosely in quotes. I mean, it's in the film, adapted from Oil by Upton Sinclair. But when you look at the synopsis of that compared to this, it's pretty different.
Yes.
It's like, but still.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, the sound in the film was also, the music and the sound was just unbelievable. The concept you have, it's tough to get that concept, right? So, but when it turned into action, who did that music again? There was a famous...
Yeah, Johnny Greenwood did the music for it.
Yeah.
And I mean, you have some of those moments where it's like that, especially like at the beginning, it's that real slow, like that discordant build of just a bunch of notes just kind of finding themselves. And that plays a number of times throughout the films. And I think it fits perfectly for the tone of what they're doing with this story, which is, I don't know, it feels natural with the way that it plays here.
Yeah, building that sense of discomfort. Like, I'm curious, if you could encapsulate the importance of discomfort in filmmaking, because I mean, your films also tend to push toward, feeling uncomfortable, in making the audience feel uncomfortable. That's what I get out of There Will Be Blood too. That discordant opening chord is it puts me on edge or pushes me back too far in my seat just a little bit. What is the utility of that to your eye? At what point do you walk that line of just saying, okay, we're going to lose people?
Yeah, that is a tough decision, right? So, and I mean, a lot of things are happening in the editing room. When you shoot it, you normally don't shoot the movie in order, and you get like a different kind of feeling being on set, and it's always good if the editor has a fresh view on things too. Because he was not on set, he doesn't know the little stories going on or whatever, and so he has more like a neutral point of view, like what the later audience need. But I think it's also, if you don't have to, basically, in a way, I was always free to do whatever I wanted. So it's like this kind of what is similar to the Paul Thomas Anderson situation, right? I don't think if you have to, in a way, convince somebody of a cut, and you can actually cut it the way you want it, then I think you have more courage to do things you yourself would watch, and not necessarily the people who go into Thor or Avengers or something. So yeah, it's, and I think he did in the film definitely the same, that it was not for him to find an arc and a 3-act kind of model to tell the story, for like advertising breaks or something. As I do it too, I with especially with the Rampage films, but also with Darfur or Tunnel Rats, I don't tell the stories typical how people would maybe expect, like a Vietnam War film like Tunnel Rats. It's not told like a commercial film in a way. The biggest mistake you can do is to make something boring. And that means for me also, like, you cannot just repeat what other people do and you tell the same story, but with different actors this time. That's not interesting for me.
Well, that's an interesting point to just bring up in the context of this film, because I think that in Hollywood, I think that, you know, if some storytellers, filmmakers, screenwriters approached a studio and said, this is going to be a great film, we're going to start the movie 15 minutes, no one talks, and we're following one guy as he's trying to build an oil well.
Yes.
And I would imagine a lot of studio heads
I'd
are
like
just
your money.
let's maybe cut all of that out. But we have that here, and I'm not bored for a second. And I find that to be such an interesting perspective, because to a certain extent, when you see a film start this way, it seems to be going exactly against what Hollywood actually says they want.
You remember the film Breaking the Waves from Lars von Trier? It was also on the oil rig in the beginning, and I think Stellan Skarsgård or whatever gets then paralyzed in the accident. You know, where he is then for the rest of the film, and then the actress who was the actress, she has to. That was, by the way, another film what we would be on my list of. I'm not a Lars von Trier fan, I have to say it, but Breaking the Waves was a masterpiece, because it was this kind of, it went from this to completely absurd, but so gripping that you went with it. You know, the fact that she has to prostitute herself and ultimately gets raped and killed so that he can walk again. I mean, it's completely, but that was the story, right? So,
yeah, right.
And it was so unbelievable, but it totally worked in the context they told the story, because it looked like the what was the Colin Farrell film from this year, the
Banshees of Inisherin.
It was the same surrounding, right? So you had the same kind of feeling that is where they live and whatever, and then it has a completely metaphoric turn into, there is somebody in heaven who is like the conductor, and he makes her die so he can walk. And it's insane, but it totally worked the way he did it there. And I think that the same in There Will Be Blood. I was not bored, as you said, for a second. I could watch it 10 minutes longer, you know, like
right, exactly.
You know, and it was also spectacular done, we have to say too, like the stunt and everything, how they did that, like, you know, like that looked all extremely good. And the same when the oil rig, the thing explodes where the sun gets dead, like when
right.
The hearing was also extremely well done, like really filmmaking in perfection.
And the cinematography, like, I mean, the shot that stands out for me there is, I think it's Kieran Hines when he comes up and he's standing next to Daniel Plainview, who's drenched in oil from head to toe, and it's pitch black outside.
Yeah.
So you only see like little tiny pieces of Daniel Plainview through the oil from the firelight, whereas Kieran Hines is completely illuminated. And he asks about the sun, and and Daniel Plainview's response is like, "Oh yeah, he's in the mess hall." And Kieran Hines is the one who runs off to check on the sun. And you just have this man who's like completely sucked into the darkness standing there. Like you just can't even see the man anymore. I feel like the way that Anderson and his cinematographer, the way that they put it together, like there are moments like this that stand out as like so defining of kind of the theme of this person who's like completely devoid of humanity here and is just a representative of oil. I think it's interesting.
Yeah. And I mean, one of the reasons I picked that film now, even if it's 16 years old, right, or 15 years, is I never saw a film like this since then. I didn't had another this kind of blown away experience since then, where I feel like that are the reasons I wanted to make movies in the first place, to tell like stories that are bigger than life, they're different, they show or the possibility. How Orson Welles said it, right? We live in the century of film because it has all the arts together. A painter, a writer, you're always limited to something. Film is everything. It's a book, it's a painting, it's visual, like it's moving. And I totally agree with it. And that film was for me like really like a milestone, what kept me up, where I felt like, because that was the time where I got the worst reviews of my life doing all the video game films, right? So, and in that time I watched that film and I felt, wow, that is basically what I would love to do,
Yeah.
So, but who would give me the money for it? So, and that is the thing, I don't have a film in the last 10, 12 years where I would say came even close. Also in the Oscar nominations, what films were nominated for the Oscars, not even close to There Will Be Blood. Maybe before films like this, they had a similar impact on me, where like Dances with Wolves was also a film where I felt like that is something where I want to make films. And
Sure.
interesting is, I'm sure you watched The Offer, about making of The Godfather, that 8-part
Right.
series with Miles Teller, right?
Miles Teller, right.
Yeah, and I liked the show because it showed how Hollywood was. This kind of like, they took risks on The Godfather, for example, and there was a time where there were just people with, like Bob Evans at that point, with balls, and when he pitches Chinatown, for example, right, to the Blue Dawn, to the owner of the studio, and they look at him like he's completely out of his fucking mind, like this kind of like, how can we have a film about water with the name Chinatown in LA? What is it? And he said, no, it's a good film, just forget it. Like, let Roman Polanski do it. And I think that times are over.
Yeah.
I submitted things to Amazon, a few things, and then I got back, you get an algorithm that basically you get a computer program where you have to fit your film in, and then it goes through the computer before humans reading it. So they don't want your script. They send you submit something, and then you get like this kind of fill out form, like you make a driver test or something. And if you don't have the right way to put it in, then the algorithm will just bury you. And like 4 or 5 weeks later, you get like, no, it's not what we're looking for. And that is crazy. We're living in a time like this where now...
Wait a minute. You're telling me you have to do that to submit a project to Amazon? Like you're applying for a job.
Yeah, I did that twice. So what's happening with Amazon is when you send it, you have two options. You get right away no, right? Then they don't even put it in the system.
Yeah.
Or they think it could be interesting. Then they send you a link. And on that link, you have to fill out like pages and pages of stuff. So you squeeze, you squeeze your film into the form. Like, who's your character? Why? Whatever. Like stuff like that. And that is so bad, because now when I think about it, like think about There Will Be Blood, you would fill out that form. I mean, you can directly push delete, and that was it. They would never make that film. But that is a real problem. And I think that they start using artificial intelligence, judging scripts and whatever. And then you have like, you can maybe get plus points when you have actors attached everybody wants. Then you immediately generate traffic, and then the computer wakes up when you say, I have Ryan Reynolds, boom, money, right? So no matter what you want to shoot. But I think that goes all on the wrong track. And I think the old days were better, where you just had a mogul sitting there and making decisions out of his ass. But because look at the 80s.
Sometimes
sometimes it works.
Sometimes he had Chinatown. Exactly. Well, that's interesting because, I mean, Todd Field, who just did Tar, I don't know if you saw that film, but I mean, that was one where he said, I don't know if I'm going to be making movies anymore, because making the movies that I want to be making, they just don't seem interested in me telling those stories anymore. And like it took him 10 plus years to get that made. And I think that's part of the big challenge. And that's why I think it's interesting looking at something like this. And Paul Thomas Anderson as a director, where I think, especially when you look like what he's done since, which I think is just The Master, Phantom Thread, and Licorice Pizza. I mean, he's not like a very prolific filmmaker, but he kind of continues making stuff that I suppose it's kind of walking a line of doing some like challenging the audience, but still finding a way to at least make enough money so that they keep giving him money. It's just not as often as maybe he'd like, but still he's still able to kind of crank these things out. I don't know. I think that there's something really interesting in the way that he chooses to tell stories, and especially this story, which I don't know. I mean, on paper, it's like, I want to make a movie about the oil industry. It's
the oil industry in 1889.
There was a TV series about it already.
It's just like sometimes I'm like, I can't believe that this guy got money to make this movie. It boggles my mind, but I'm thrilled.
Well, and did you say in the list Inherent Vice when you're talking about that?
I forgot
another thing that he did in there,
right.
And that was one I think I liked more than you did. I don't remember, but that was one that I really enjoyed. Like, this is a guy who has somehow been able to develop his career before the algorithm took over, right? It almost feels like he kind of beat that system and developed a name. Like, is it possible for a Paul Thomas Anderson, who hasn't made any films yet, to get movies made like this today? Like, if he were to start in 2023, I think it would be a real challenge.
No, but you still like whatever. But it's like this kind of crazy thing that Orson Welles stayed with Peter Bogdanovich and died poor, and then Peter Bogdanovich died poor himself, right? So, and that is how the world treats like historical important figures for the history of cinema, So, I mean, I recognize that a lot, like, I'm, of course, like studying film and reading about directors, that nothing is automatic, that they keep doing things with you. Maybe Clint Eastwood is the last survivor of this kind of just let him do it.
Yeah, maybe.
So, and I mean, he's now 92. Hopefully we can do that film now about the jurors thing. He's doing one more like court drama, whatever he wants to do. I think it would be great if he can finish that film. And, but after him, nobody will have a deal anymore.
Yeah.
I actually think if Steven Spielberg says, okay, I want to do E.T. 2, he gets the money. But if Steven Spielberg says, I want to do now this, he's not necessarily getting a green light.
Yeah.
And he's like maybe the most known director, at least of the last 50 years. So, and that is the thing. It's like nothing is automatic now. And I feel also that directors, in a way, are exchangeable. You don't even know all that directors anymore. And that was one thing when I said I'm coming back. I did 6 years ago Rampage 3, and now I'm coming back and I do First Shift, the police crime drama first. And then I do hopefully one or two more movies soon. And then a guy from the Hollywood Reporter, he said, at least everybody knows you. He said, we don't actually know anybody anymore. So the audience don't know people. If we put names of directors on like a headline in the Hollywood Reporter, nobody gives a shit because they never heard about that person.
If it's not Ridley Scott, James Cameron, Steven Spielberg, like there are few names. Dashingly few names.
Yeah. So, and he said, and Uwe Boll, everybody knows also what is a good thing. He said, at least, because whatever, I did a lot of films, I got a lot of press, a lot of negative press, whatever. But on the other hand, people love to follow me, what I'm doing. So, and he said, it's a good thing if some characters coming back into the game who were gone. And I think it's sad. It's sad that now only actors are heading articles or whatever, and a director is it went into an exchangeable situation. But it has to do maybe also with the subject matters and with the fact that streamers, of course, are in a totally different world, because we had theatrical releases, then we had DVD releases, then we had TV appearances. So it was this kind of like a film had a longer life.
Right.
Now they're giving people $200 million, and after 1 week, the movie is gone forever, and nobody gives a shit, and it disappeared. Then you're like moving away from new releases on Netflix or where, whatever streamer it is, into no man's land.
Yeah, you just hope that it ends up in the popular top 10 or something, so that it kind of has a longer life. And that's interesting because like a movie like this, I don't know if it could find its audience in a streaming service, unless it was something like Netflix that was also doing all of the awards push and everything. But otherwise, like, I don't know. It's an interesting market out there where this, again, just going back to the point of like, this is a challenging film about a challenging character, and it's a story about the oil industry, and like, and you know, especially, you know, it's a story where I don't know. There's a lot of complexities with like greed and capitalism and religion. You know, you're certainly pushing buttons there. And I think a lot of people, that sort of story isn't necessarily going to be the thing that they gravitate to on the streaming services.
No, that's 100% not. But I think There Will Be Blood is a film about America.
Yeah, right.
You know, about what really happened in America. You know, people came from all over, mostly Europe, and then who was first. And people were left, like, whatever, the natives got killed, you know, then they divided the country and pushed the surviving natives away. They built the railroad. Then they recognized we need slaves. We don't have enough like people we can abuse here anymore. So they imported slaves. You know, yeah. And then, I mean, that is the rough story, basically.
America is built on a bed of blood and violence.
Yes,
and,
it's in the title.
There will be blood. The title, but this is really interesting. Like the grammar of the title also is, I find, provocative. The fact that we get to the end of the movie and he's sitting, and the last line of the movie is "I'm finished."
Yeah.
He's finished, and yet we just get to sit in this space, this sort of liminal space of so much blood left to be shed in the expansion to the west, thanks in large part to oil and exploitation. And so it's incredibly powerful. We have a thing that we say around our community, thanks a large part to our fantastic community member Nick Langdon, who, when The Last Duel came out, it said, "Go see that movie in the theater. You may not love it. It may not be a 5-star film for you, but it's a movie for grown-ups. And more than anything right now, we have to go see movies in the theater that are made for grown-ups." And I think this is one of those movies. Like, you see a movie like this once in every number of years.
Yeah.
We have to go see these movies if we want these movies, because the rest of it is just an algorithmic machine. It's just another, as you say, directors become fungible resources for Marvel. That's the bottom line.
Yeah. And I think also, seeing all the DVDs behind you, I'm the same. I want, like, how the record comes back to, you know, like on the record player. I still have my record player here. You know, it's like, I love DVDs because I want the making of, I want the director's commentary, and all of that gets lost now. And then the after our generation, there is no loving film generation more. You know, like I see from my own kids, right? They're watching films on their cell phone. And I like, how can you watch this on your cell phone? It's horrible. I mean, you know, we have a TV, like, watch it in TV, and they're sitting on the couch watching crap. And you think, like, how they could ever really love this kind of fascination what we all had growing up watching films or going in the movie theaters. And when I go with them watching a film, that they getting bored because it's too long. You know, they cannot even hold the attention span anymore because everything they watch is 10 minutes long. You know, and that is it's very shocking to see that development. And I think it's also this I'm not against starting a film with an action sequence or whatever, but if it's a must, then it's shit, you know. And that is the thing, because they, of course, looking specifically also Netflix and co, they're looking into, if nothing happens in the first 2 minutes, they're not interested in the product, and that limits the possibility to develop a story.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, what happened to the slow burn stuff, you know, or the stuff what then pays off big in the end, and you need a little patience to go through it. That is all alarming signs, because the studios, I think, they just go for the $250 million films now, where they know we spend so much money, people will come to the movies. But as you said, it's like, what would happen to a film now with There Will Be Blood if it would come now in the movie theaters? There would be a big chance that it doesn't make $2 million box office. that it just dies and nobody watches it. And that is very sad to recognize it.
How to do an award season, Andy?
Oh, this movie was very popular in the awards circuits. It was, good year, 2007. A lot of strong films, and this one still was one of them that stood up tall. 118 wins with 137 other nominations. It made many of the critics' top 10 lists of the year, and a number of the top 10 lists of the decade as well. At the Oscars, it had 8 nominations. It won 2 of them. Daniel Day-Lewis won Best Actor, and it won Best Cinematography for Ron Elswit. It was nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay, but lost all of those to No Country for Old Men. Nominated for Best Art Direction, but lost to Sweeney Todd, The Demon Barber of Fleet Street. And nominated for Best Film Editing and Sound Editing, but lost to The Bourne Ultimatum.
I don't know. That is an extraordinary lineup. I am gobsmacked that there were that many movies that I like in that list.
It was, 2007.
It was huge.
A lot of people say that was really kind of the last, you have these years like 1999, so many good films.
Yeah.
We've talked about 1976, a lot of great films that year. 2007 had so many good films. It was quite a tough run.
And I think we've talked about almost all of them.
All of them.
Especially as you transition to the BAFTAs. There are even more.
The ones that I just did, yeah. Well, yeah, in the BAFTAs, I think the only one we haven't talked about was Atonement. At the BAFTAs, this had 9 nominations. It lost Best Film to Atonement. Paul Dano was nominated for Best Supporting Actor, but lost to Javier Bardem in No Country for Old Men. It lost Best Adapted Screenplay to The Diving Bell and the Butterfly. That was something we certainly talked about on this show. Best Cinematography lost to No Country for Old Men. Best Production Design lost to Atonement. Best Sound lost to The Bourne Ultimatum. Daniel Day-Lewis did win Leading Actor. And then Best Director, they lost to No Country for Old Men. And it was nominated for the Anthony Asquith Award for Film Music, but lost to La Vie en Rose.
Yeah, we didn't like that one that much.
We liked the performance.
But she was great.
We liked her
Card.
performance a lot. That's exactly right.
Well, okay. So speaking of money, how did it do at the box office?
Well, Anderson's film cost $25 million to make, which is $36.75 million in today's dollars. The movie debuted at Fantastic Fest in 2007 before a release for awards consideration on December 26, 2007 opposite National Treasure Book of Secrets, Charlie Wilson's War, Sweeney Todd, The Demon Barber of Fleet Street, Aliens vs. Predator, Requiem, P.S. I Love You, Walk Hard, The Dewey Cox Story, The Water Horse, and The Great Debaters, not to mention the limited releases of The Bucket List and Persepolis.
Wow.
Whew. Yeah, it is a busy Christmas release schedule, end of the year awards sort of thing. This movie slowly expanded its number of screens until February 1st, when they pushed it over 1,000 screens, finally, likely from Oscar announcements. That is also about when it started cracking the top 10 at the box office as well, though not for very long. This movie went on to make just over $40 million domestically and almost $38 million internationally, for a total gross of $113.5 million in today's dollars. That is a great turn for Anderson's dark tale, landing it with an adjusted profit per finished minute of almost $486,000.
Can we transition a bit to the first shift? I'm so curious about how you made this transition. I was reading up on some of your interviews from some now years ago, and reading them like it was today. You saying, "Yeah, I'm retiring," and you were talking a lot about the economics of the business and the fact that there was no. That the bottom had fallen out of video rentals, and that was such a direct impact. And you decided to use the word retire, and here we're back. I'm curious how the world's changed for you.
No, I think that the time 2016, when I said it's over, it was really the death of Blockbuster. And for me, it was like that was one of the biggest revenue streams of my films. They always did mediocre, some bad, some mediocre on the box office, but they did very good on DVD sales. And with this, I didn't saw a replacement at that point. Now, with all that streamers around and more possibilities to basically do various deals with various streamers, it is a better chance to maybe get the money back if you produce something or they pay it even. And that was the reason I wanted to come back. But mostly I just missed filmmaking and I missed making films. So I did a small film in Germany, Hanau, about a terror attack here by Frankfurt. And then I felt, no, I want to tell bigger stories again and other stories. So I wrote basically this first Shift film. It didn't came from nowhere because I had a film 12 hours I wanted to do in South Africa, but I couldn't get a big enough star. So I really tried, and
just because nobody wanted to come to South Africa with you?
Yeah, I don't know. That is the thing. I still don't know. We got very good readers' reports about the script, and some agents really liked it, but whatever, the actors in the end didn't want to do it. And now a lot of actors, of course, getting a lot of offers because of all the streaming films. So it's not like they need that film or something. There are maybe 100 actors with real names, and they're always, when the agent approaches Netflix, they would love to have him in a TV series, whatever. So it's not hard for them to get a job. So I couldn't get it. So, and then I felt, okay, I left New York. I left South of Wall Street, shooting partly there and so on. And I felt if I shoot in New York, it will be definitely easier to get actors because you can just get them and pick them up in the morning. And
right, on the corner.
easier casting process. And I wanted to do more like an ensemble film. And I had 3 scenes written for years. A lot of times I write a scene, but I don't know in what I want to put it. Like, it's like this kind of like, there's no story to it, but it's that I know that one scene or that one thing will totally work. And I felt if I tell the story of 2 cops working the first time together, going through one 12-hour shift, I can have that 3 little side plots in this, and they're getting confronted with the police. And one is, for example, I give one away, is like a killer, like a mafia kind of a killer situation where they offer a guy, they kill his kid and let him live. And he trades that off and let his kid get killed, but they kill him also. So, but it's a very overall scene, what I did in Rampage, and like a very cynical, brutal scene.
Yeah.
And I got Daniel Soli. He was the bad guy in The Deuce with James Franco. He was the brutal mafia killer. Right, so I asked him to do it, and he did it, And then I had like Gary Pastore. He was in 10 Scorsese films. Always, when you see mobsters, he's always there.
He's the guy.
So,
he's always there.
We got a very good cast doing that scene because they loved it, right? So that is one of that scenes. And so I think I have a good film, right? So Ethan Manikis is editing it. He did. From Dusk Till Dawn, he directed Machete, and so
fantastic pedigree.
Because last November I was in LA, and the guy came and he said, "Oh, I love Postal, blah blah blah," and I was at the American Film Market, and I didn't know who it was, and I said, "So what are you doing?" He said, "I'm an editor," and he said, "He's Manikis," and it didn't ring the bell, and then he said, "No, I did with Robert Rodriguez. We did Sin City and everything." So. I would love to do a film with you. So, and then I called him and I said, I do a first shift. You want to edit it? And he's doing it right now in LA.
No, as of right now, you haven't seen the rough cut of first shift.
No. It takes another 3 weeks. And then we will see what we have. But he said so far everything looks good. What is good for me as a feedback, because when you do kind of a road movie, what it was, you don't really know, is it all fitting together? And then I told him also, look, we have various options. You can have this kind of side stories as one block, and then, like the cops are after and before, or you cut it all parallel, like happening at the same time, like a little puzzle. And I gave him this option. I said, look, try both. Let's see what works the best. Present me what works the best. Then we discuss it. But I have the feeling, based on all the cast I got, like all the little parts were very good actors. James Megaman from Orange is the New Black, Gino Pizzi is very good. the Kristen Renton from Sons of Anarchy and so on. So that is a good cast. It's not like a superstar cast, but everybody is known. Like you have 10 actors you saw 50 times already. So, and I think that is a good film for me to come back. And it's also different, not Canada this time, like a full American film, basically. And I think it's, hopefully it helps me for the next projects then too.
Do you have distribution for it?
No, I just did it now, and I felt like I want to finish it and present it, and then let's see who wants it the most. But I want a little theatrical release. I want to go on festivals. Sure. I want to be in a few movie theaters. I just don't want to be, boom, it's on the streamer and it disappears to no man's land after a week. So I want that looks like we shot CinemaScope. So I want that it's on screen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Deservedly so.
Well, let us know when it does get some distribution, so we can make sure that we let all of our people know.
Yeah, I mean, it will be out. It will come out no matter what, and but yeah, but let's see. And I felt like it's also a story. What is not? It has also like hope in it. It's not all negative, right? Or brutal or whatever. So it goes like this. And it's not so cynical as a Rampage is, for example.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. Well, you've got that coming for people to check out. Plug your podcast again. What's the name of it so people can check it out?
Uwe Boll Raw.
Uwe Boll Raw.
Yeah.
Find it on all your podcatchers. So check that out. You can get all of Uwe's opinions on everything going on with the potential writer's strike that we have to anything else going on in the industry. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Gary Otto will tell you about his new car. I just got to that episode. Absolutely. I listen to this all day long. You guys are awesome.
He's from New York, but he's in Florida. I know him forever. Yeah. And another thing what we do, not me, but in LA, so they do new 4K versions of Postal and some other films, and will do a new Blu-ray and DVD release.
Great.
What I'm very happy about. I got contacted by Louis Justin is his name. They have a lab and everything, and so because I want the highest maximum quality, so we had to go back to the 35 millimeter originals. And looking forward to, and I do new commentaries to the film. So
of just those two of Rampage and Postal.
I think Postal, Tunnel Rats.
That's what I was interested in. Is are we going to get a new Tunnel Rat?
Yeah, Tunnel Rats, and then
but Postal, Pete, you get even more of Dave Foley in 4K.
What all the Dave Foley in 4K?
There's a lot of Dave Foley.
Yeah, I mean, I would love, like, Lionsgate is like they're not really cooperative with anything, and I told them, like, look, if we can get the money basically that they investing it, and they just want to release a new DVD in exchange, I told Lionsgate, how can you not do that deal for Alone in the Dark and House of the Dead? Because with 4K versions of that films, they can relicense it to the streamers and would get maybe way more money for it because it's 4K. And that they didn't even answer me. And I like, but what are you doing? I mean,
especially right now, right when they've just rediscovered that, look, video game movies are kind of awesome. Like, people would stream these movies for sure.
Yes, and I think the re-release, like on the Blu-ray in 4K of House of the Dead, would sell good right now, like on Blu-ray. People would still buy it.
Yeah, get it out there.
Man.
Okay.
Well, that's it for today's episode of Movies We Like. Thank you so much, Uwe Boll, for joining us today. We really appreciate it. For all of you, we hope you like the show, and we certainly hope that you like the movie like we do here on Movies We Like. The Next Reel presents Movies We Like is a part of the True Story FM Entertainment Podcast Network. The music is Chong Clap by Out of Flux. Find the show at truestory.fm and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at The Next Reel. If your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, we always appreciate it if you drop one there for us. See you next time.
Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way.
I love having these wonderful chats on movies we like with all these industry guests talking about some of their favorite movies.
So many great conversations on that show about so many great movies.
We have so much fun having these conversations, but producing the show week after week does require a lot of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our Originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these incredible conversations.
The Originals page at thenextreel.com/originals links to the source material for all the adapted film discussions on the Next Reel's family of podcasts. Purchasing through our links supports the show.
It's your one-stop shop for Amazon and Apple links where you can buy your copy of the original source material.
Original material for movies we like, movies like Casino Royale,
The Silent Partner,
Never Let Me Go,
Silver Linings Playbook,
There Will Be Blood, based on Upton Sinclair's Oil.
I believe it's Oil!
Oh yeah, I forgot the exclamation point.
Plus, by using those links to buy your next read, Apple and Amazon show us a little bit of love, which allows you to support our family of shows with minimal effort.
thenextreel.com/originals. It's a great way to support the show and find your next page turner.
That's right. Head over to thenextreel.com/originals to pick out your next read and dig in today.